with this is now you should be able to just very gently lift. Okay, so huge difference for this door. I don't know if they make all of the original doors with this little circle at the bottom. All right, so with the Intent stove, this is the Intent 2.0. We had an issue where lifting on this side wouldn't actually lift the stove. You can hear there's a pretty terrible screech from the hinge pin, and a lot of the time you just can't actually lift unless you're really aggressive. Now this side works fine, and that's because the way this hinge is designed, you have to actually lift from the hinge side in order to get this thing to slide up. These were originally bent a little too far on each end, so we straightened those out, and it's still kind of screechy and terrible. So first thing I want to try is if this dry graphite lubricant will fix that screechy sound. I've never actually used this before, so kind of see what happens. I do see graphite lubricant happening. It's fluffing out of there. So I would say that has helped some. It is now easier to lift from this side, but you still hear a pretty terrible screech. So, some amount of help. Next thing I'm going to do is try a different door. We reached out to Morzh, and they told us that the door shouldn't do this. We also had an issue where once the fire got started, this door would completely lock itself closed, no matter which side you lift it on. So we think there is a manufacturing defect with this door. So we're going to swap it with a new replacement door they sent, which will hopefully have better tolerances, and then see what that does, and apply more of the graphite lubricant. So, this part of the video is kind of going to be terrible. So feel free to cut this. Cool. Okay, so Morzh sent us the new stove and the new pin. There's probably no difference between these pins, but they sent us a new clean one just in case anyway, so we have all fresh new components. So easy enough. We come up through here. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Cool, so that's our new door attached. I'll say it's already better than the last one. Now what I'm noticing here is this door. This is actually a huge difference. The original door had a single circle cut out at the bottom. This new door, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see underneath here. This new door has a slot cut out at the bottom. So there's actually wiggle room for this entire door to move without having to lift the entire thing up. Can you bring the camera back again? So that means instead of having to lift the entire door on this assembly, whether it's lifted or not, there's still additional wiggle room for this thing to move. So that is huge and fixes the main problem I had with this. Now you should be able to just very gently lift. Okay, so huge difference for this door. I don't know if they make all of the original doors with this little circle at the bottom, but if yours has this little circle at the bottom instead of a slot, get in touch with Morzh and get this, because this is way better. I feel like we don't even need the lubricant at this point because there's no more sliding on the hinge. Huge improvement. I'm sold. I'm going to put this on here anyway, just in case, because I have it. but I feel much better about this. What I'm noticing with this dry graphite lubricant, again, I don't know if this is really needed at this point. This makes way less sound. Yeah, it used to make a terrible screech, you heard it. It still doesn't quite lift off without a little extra pull. Maybe that's fine. But I think this is easy enough and not screechy enough that I'm happy with it. Great, we're gonna run a burnout and make sure that this door mechanism still works with high heat. I think it will. One other thing I noticed about this, I was a little surprised, this piece of glass isn't like bolted in or anything, so the glass does wiggle around. I don't necessarily think that's a problem, but it was something I noticed. The glass is sandwiched between two things, but it's not firmly attached. You're probably not going to be shaking your door like this, but if you are, you hear the glass wiggling. So I'll pause the video here, and we'll come back in when it's running to make sure the door still works. So this is the Intent 2.0 stove. We replaced the original door with this glass door, and now it is pretty easy to take on and off. Inside here, this V-shape plate supposedly is for better airflow to have this V-shape. It's slightly harder to build a fire on top of, but I don't know how much that really matters. Maybe I'll get used to it. Something that kind of bothers me with this is when we pull this tray out, this is your like airflow adjustment tray. But when everything is closed and you're like in a sauna at night, it's like kind of hard to find that particular little lip. I mean, it's very nice looking and flush from the front, but when you're kind of digging around with like a gloved hand and you're like trying to find this thing, it's kind of hidden. So just something to be aware of. Again, I'm sure you'll get used to it eventually. But I have noticed some other brands, this sticks out further, so it's just easier to hook onto when you have a gloved hand in the dark. At the back of the stove, I think this is a baffle plate back there. So this back wall has 2 holes at the top, and then this chimney section here, I think there's 3 holes in the bottom of this. They're gonna be really hard to see here, but I think there's a couple holes in the bottom of this plate, and what I think is happening is air comes through here, and then the air goes up those holes, and then there's a section in between these two where the air comes up and then back down and then comes out this one. So I think there's a little internal baffle, so that means this should slow down the smoke flow through here. Hard to tell without being able to x-ray the thing. The other thing I've noticed is there are heat shields all the way around. So there's heat shield on this backside. So this is all heat shielding. These side heat shieldings around. There's a front heat shielding. And there's even heat shielding on the bottom under here. So this is all heat shielded. So that means there's very little radiant heat coming off of the stove. Yeah, so that's a quick walkthrough of a couple things they don't tell you in the other videos. Something else I noticed with the Intent is these pipes are pretty solid to install. They're like surprisingly thick. I thought they were going to be a little more thin and malleable. I guess the advantage is they're strong. Sometimes that makes them really hard to fit into each other. I'm wondering if because we've run a couple burns on this one, they fit in a little easier. But I remember the first time we put this thing together, these did not go together easily. It was kind of like a real hassle to put them in. But at this point, now that I've put it together and taken it apart a couple times, they're mostly sliding into place. You can see this one is still a little tight, but it seems fine. We're just gonna do a burnout on that new door here. This one. Also not bad. This could probably have to be a two-hand push here. Yep, and then I didn't leave myself any space for this top one. So maybe we forego it. Or we'll actually take this one off. Yeah, so this is the downside here, right? So I've attached these all on, and let's say I want to put one more on the top or take this off. These aren't super duper easy to just pull off. It'll come off, you know, somewhere in the series of pipes. But it's not always just like the easiest process. So hopefully you don't have to do this very often. Like I said, these have gone in easier this time than ever before. So maybe things are getting better, but I mean, there you go. This was a 2-minute video and I did this mostly one-handed. So yeah, that's the deal with the pipes. Okay, so when it comes to building a fire in the Intent 2.0, it used to bother me that there was these V-shaped things. At this point, you kind of just like shove some logs in there. And on this bottom one, you can have your fire starter. So this is pretty easy. I don't think you have to overthink it too much. You could build the perfect fire to start with, or just kind of get the fire going. Now, the thing is, when it comes to these fire starter things, like I said, it's really easy to start the fire. It's pretty hard for them to go out on their own. That being said, if you build a bad fire around it, or especially if you're using wet wood, which I would never recommend in one of these, it'll be hard to get it to light the first time. I think if I had to do it over again, I would just get one of those blowtorch things. They look much easier, and then you don't have to like worry about coming back in 15 minutes to check on your fire and be like, oh, it went out. So yeah, I'm gonna let this get going and then make sure the new glass door works. But so far, it's great. It's this slot mechanism. This is the key. The fact that that door can rock up. Because before I had to slide the whole thing up, which was way more than you needed when just a simple rock up is good. I do notice you still have to pull a little bit. So I guess that means you're less likely to like accidentally bump it. You might need a little more deliberate of a press, but it seems like that's working fine. I think I forgot to give my fire air, so we'll do some of that. This glass door also makes a big difference because it used to be when this thing was closed, I couldn't see what was happening in the fire at all. And you might not think that's a huge problem because you can just open the door. But again, if the door kind of gets stuck or isn't super easy to open, in my previous version of this door, it would get stuck. That means you have no idea what's going on with the fire and the door's hard to open, and it was just frustrating. So you'd pretty much like, I would only ever close the door halfway. And then sometimes at the start of making the fire, smoke would come out. So this is great. Being able to see the fire, easy access, much better. Good job, Morzh. Okay, so checking back in. Stove door, again, super nice that this is glass, so you can see what's going on with the fire. This is a nice big picture in here. I do think Intent probably has one of the bigger glass doors, so when I'm like able to look in here and really see what's going on, I can see what's going on without seeing me in here. But yeah, this is a pretty fantastic view of the fire. And again, this door is now really easy to open and close. So yeah, really good job. This latch at the bottom here, supposedly when you close this, it, you know, they say blocks the airflow. Hard to tell how much we're blocking it fully, but there is still some gaps around the side. So if one side's closed, the other side is about this much open. Theoretically, should I be able to tell what's happening with the fire when this is open or closed? Yes, let's see. If we close it, the fire does seem to quiet down. It looks like there's kind of a draft sucking things towards the back. And if we open it, it's more like fire coming straight up. So what I'm seeing here is when this is open, fire is coming up through those little V's, or air is coming up through the little under V section in here. So when this is open, we get air through all of that. When this is closed, notice the fire looks like it pulls more towards the back. So it's rushing towards the back of the stove. When this is open, it slows down and goes a little bit more up. So I think what's happening is when this is closed, the draft from the chimney is more pulling air through this way. So the only airflow in here is out the back. So we still have, you know, a good amount of airflow based on how I'm seeing this being pulled. And I'm wondering if cracking this open a little bit, what effect that has. Do we still have as much pulling towards the back and now there's just more up at the same time? That's what I would think is happening. So yeah, it does look like this is now pretty easy to control your fire. Again, you cannot suffocate the fire by closing this, but it does look like the fire is struggling a little bit here compared to a nice whoosh of air from underneath. So again, I would say this is functional. 100% get the glass door. I would probably not consider this stove without the glass door. That is a huge impact in quality of life. Absolutely worth it. Yeah, fantastic. Good job, Morzh. All right, one other thing I wanted to mention about this, now that this is really easy to open, I don't know if you really need gloves to work with the stove. I just realized I've been doing all of this. My gloves are over there. I haven't even touched them this whole time. So I've been working with this fire, loading wood, opening and closing this ashtray. I haven't put on gloves I wouldn't stick my hand in the fire. That's gonna be hot. But this piece is actually not hot to the touch. And this part is hot enough to burn you. But that connection here is pretty well insulated, it looks like. I don't know what that is, like some sort of felt something or other. I don't know, but this piece is not hot at all. So I do not feel in danger of opening this stove while it's on fire without a glove. Wow, you can see how much the additional air makes the fire go crazy. So when the stove is has the door closed, the fire actually looks nicer than with the door open. This is kind of aggressive, and this is nice and calm and flowy. Good job, Morzh.